Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape from Tarkov video. In this one, I'm going to talk about a few weapon builds I've been playing with that I think can compete with the current best-in-slot setups for a lower price. Right out of the gate, I'll say that these are definitely not budget builds. They're weapon setups that have recoil stats and lethality on par with the most expensive setups in their class, but using an alternative build that is cheaper while being just as effective. These builds are for people who have reached the point where they're running full gear, but looking to knock the overall price of their loadout down a bit while not sacrificing any ability to kill other players. You'll be needing level 3 to 4 traders for pretty much all of these builds, so keep that in mind, because most of these items are going to be pretty expensive on the flea market. For each weapon, I'll show a comparison between my build and the best in slot build I'm trying to compete with, both in terms of stats and the overall price before going over the full build. So with that out of the way, let's look at some alternative setups for high-end top tier PMC killing. As I've talked about in my previous M4A1 build guide, the M4 is by far one of the most modular and customizable weapons currently available in Escape from Tarkov. There are tons of viable setups you can make with an M4, but the current best in slot setup is based around the SAI handguard and jailbreak muzzle attachments, combined with the MUR-1S upper receiver and advanced buffer tube to really bring the recoil down. This is undeniably a slick looking setup, and it shoots like a true laser rifle even on full auto, so naturally it's become quite popular. This is what I would call the current meta M4 setup. And when I built it piece by piece, it came out to around 210,000 rubles. To justify that price tag, however, here are the stats I get with this build. Those numbers are crazy, and it's an extremely effective setup. That is an awful lot of cash to build an M4 though, so I figured I would take a shot at reducing that price while keeping the stats as close to the same as I could, and I'm actually pretty happy with what I came up with. Just a little note about why I didn't take a look at the AK416 in this spot, and it's simply because it's a newer weapon that doesn't yet have a huge assortment of mods with varying stats. There's really only one optimal setup for the HK, but I predict that will change big time in 0.12, and I'll be doing a video on it as soon as I get a chance to try out the new mods. So here's the setup I put together for the M4 based around the MK10 handguard and the MFT BUS stock, which I was able to get down to 44 vertical recoil and 65 ergonomics for about 122,000 rubles. It's not too far off the best in slot stats, and you save nearly 90,000 rubles, which can be kept or invested in some better armor or ammo. I'll leave up a list of all the parts, their price, and who currently sells them for a few seconds, so you can pause the video if you want a full list of the parts used before I go over them piece by piece. I did buy and assemble this M4 from the ground up, starting with the M4 lower receiver from mechanic level 3 and adding each part to that. Starting from the front, I went with the PWS CQB 556 compensator from skier level 3, which is currently the cheapest way in the game to get over 10% recoil reduction. The barrel I chose to use is the 406mm ADAR barrel, sold by skier level 2, purely to cut costs. The 370mm AR-15 barrel has slightly better accuracy, but this one works just fine and gets you the max recoil reduction at half the cost. For the handguard, as I mentioned earlier, I went with the MK10 handguard, sold by mechanic level 3. For just over half the price of the SAI handguard, you get the same recoil stats and just slightly lower ergonomics, so I think it's a pretty great investment. As a foregrip, I went with the Zenit RK2 grip because it gives you maximum recoil reduction. It's about 13,000 rubles, and if you're willing to take a few extra points of recoil, you can use the RK0, which gets you 3% recoil reduction for about half the price. For any high tier M4 build, you're going to want to swap out the standard upper receiver for the VLTOR MUR-1S upper receiver from Peacekeeper level 4 because of the extra recoil reduction and ergonomics points. Another core piece of any grade M4 is the SI advanced buffer tube from mechanic level 4, giving you an extra 4% recoil reduction to your stock for only about 9,000 rubles. For the stock itself, I went with the MFT BUS stock from Peacekeeper level 3. I've been playing around with this stock for a while because it gives you the same recoil reduction as the MOE stock with the rubber butt pad, but it's about 4,000 rubles cheaper. The final pieces you'll need to make this operational are the MK12 gas block from Peacekeeper level 3, a pistol grip, and a charging handle. You can use the basic AR-15 parts here to save cash, but I went with the Badger Ordnance charging handle and the Hogue rubber grip for the extra ergonomics points. And with that, the build is pretty much complete. Your choice of optic is up to you, but I tried a few of these out with the HoloSun reflex sight because it has a built-in laser, and I figured that would just add even more to the build without spending too much extra. The AK74 series are arguably the most commonly seen rifles out there in Tarkov. They're reliable, available at a low level, ammo is plentiful, and there are a lot of modding options for different setups. Currently, there is sort of a clear winner when it comes to builds for the AK74, using the VLTOR CMRD handguard, Zhukov S stock, and PWS compensator to get the rifle to under 50 recoil. That best in slot setup itself actually isn't really that expensive, coming out to just over 130,000 rubles without the optic, which isn't bad for a fully upgraded weapon. However, I've been messing around with a build that I think actually gives you more lethality and firepower and saves you about 30,000 rubles off of that price. This time, I'm not even talking about an alternate AK-74 build, but a straight upgrade to the RPK-16, an LMG assault rifle hybrid that takes the same ammo as the AK-74, but with a higher fire rate so you can drop enemies a little bit faster. I'll put up a list of the parts, their price, and who sells them, and as you can see, it's not a very complicated build. What I actually like most about this setup is how simple it is, because it saves you a little bit of time clicking through menus to buy parts. All you need to do is buy an RPK from proper level 4 for 69,000 rubles, and add 3 parts to complete it: a stock, a compensator, and a foregrip. For the compensator, I again went with the PWS CQB from Skier level 3, because it just gives so much recoil reduction for a cheap price. Next, toss on the Zenit RK2 foregrip, also from Skier level 3, for the maxed out recoil reduction. Finally, I added the MFT BUS stock from Peacekeeper level 3 to the RPK buffer tube, and that's the entire build. The ergonomics is quite low, which means it's not going to be a good gun for long range shooting, but the recoil is almost exactly the same as the best in slot AK-74 build. Because of its higher fire rate compared to the AK-74, the RPK absolutely shreds through people at close to medium range, especially when you add the 95 round drum magazine and pack it full of BS rounds. This one actually surprised me a bit because I really didn't think you could build an RPK for less than an AK-74, and I never even thought about it until I noticed Proper selling the RPK for 69,000 rubles. For this last one, I'm going to talk about the 3 main semi-automatic snipers or designated marksman rifles currently available in Tarkov, and make the wild suggestion that people are sleeping on the SVD. Currently, there are 3 main high-caliber DMR type weapons in Escape from Tarkov: the M1A, the Remington RSAS, and the SVDS. I'm not counting the SKS, ADAR, or Vepr Hunter here because those are carbines and hunting rifles, not military-grade DMRs. All 3 of them basically fill the same role. They fire high caliber rounds that can kill an enemy in one shot accurately over long distances, but they vary wildly in terms of their price and how much customization you have to do for them to reach maximum effectiveness. First off, let's make a quick price comparison. Converted to rubles using the current average price of dollars in Tarkov, about 116 rubles, the RSAS costs you nearly 150,000. The SVD is about 95,000 rubles, and the M1A is about 88,000. Based strictly on price, we'll exclude the RSAS from this and leave it between the M1A and the SVD. On paper, they seem very comparable in terms of price. However, the M1A comes standard with a shorter barrel, which you'll want to change out if you intend to use it as a DMR, and the alternative stocks and frames for it are quite expensive as well. Now compare this to the SVD, which really only needs you to add an optic to be up and running at maximum effectiveness. It will kill just as fast, shoot just as straight, and reach out just as far as either of the alternatives. But the total build cost for an SVD is about the same price as the base weapon for either of the other options. Like the RPK, this build is simple and straightforward, which is one of my favorite parts about it. The first main part you need is the B13 rail platform, which will mount onto the SVD's dovetail mount and let you add pretty much any scope you want. For this one, I'm going to add my favorite sniping optic, the EOTech Voodoo 1-6 scope, sold by Mechanic Level 3 for about 47,000 rubles. You'll need a 30mm scope mount for this one, and I recommend either the Burris AR Pepper mount or the JP 30mm mount because they have backup sight mounts as well. Finally, add your choice of backup reflex sight and you have a DMR build fully capable of one-shot kills with the right ammo for just over 150,000 rubles total. If you wanted to go even lower on that price, you can just add the PSO scope for about 19,000 rubles, but you won't be able to get a backup sight of any kind on the rifle as far as I know. I hope you all enjoyed these builds and take a chance before the patch ends and the wipe hits us to mess around with the RPK, the SVD, or any other weapons you haven't got a chance to test out yet, because pretty soon they're all gonna get taken away from us. If this video gets good feedback, I'll definitely consider doing a follow-up, especially once patch 0.12 drops. I'm sure there will be a whole lot of new cost-effective setups to build. I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/jdogthewise, and it would be great to see some more people drop by, so I'll leave a link for that in the description. Thanks again for checking out the video. As always, feel free to leave any comments, corrections, or suggestions down below. And until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.